Hi, everybody, and welcome to How to Create Content That Actually Converts. It's with Quote Roller and Service Crowd. I'm Jen Riggins. I'm from Quote Roller, and I'm a journalist, social media addict, do content, everything. And so we have Quote Roller business proposal software, and we also have PandaDoc, the electronic signature app. And on the side, since I am an American girl living in Barcelona, I also write about startups in Spain. So if you want to introduce yourself there, Daniel, welcome to our webinar.
Hi, everybody. I'm Daniel. I'm the founder of Service Crowd, which is a quote comparison site for local services in Australia, formerly known as Design Quotes. I suppose my background is very much in content marketing and online strategy. We use a lot of content to essentially generate leads for the services on our site. And you'll have to excuse my voice. I've had a bit of a cold.
You swallowed a frog. Okay. So let's start with the idea that begin, content marketing isn't selling. It's about building a relationship with your client or prospect. You have to think about this the entire time you're going through the process. So also you could buy them a beer. But think of it as not only as selling or building a relationship, but as creating content and lead generation through your blog to start with. So if you're selling to a consumer, B2C, blogging will give you an increase of 7% of leads. But if you are selling to another business, if you're B2B, you'll see a whopping increase of 67% of lead generation. So it's a basically free thing to use depending on what type of WordPress you're using. So I can't stress enough how good it is because just one blog post per week says it will increase your leads by a whopping 77%. But remember, quantity doesn't always translate to quality. So there are different ingredients that go into a great type of blog post. If you think about it as you look for as a consumer, you want to look for certain things that you look for. Everything you do online should be the idea of how you use the internet. So you're always looking for eye-catching headlines, in-depth, higher quality, longer pieces, but also sometimes you want shorter ones. You want consumable content with bullets. You're scanning on you're reading on your iPad or your smartphone. You want to be able to consume it easily. You want exciting art. You want to ask open-ended questions that address targets' needs. You want to put industry-specific keywords. You want to invite further discussion. You want to solve a problem for someone. You also want to make sure your art is saved with logical names. That's a trick that I find so many people do whatever is the automatic saving for their image, whether it's the date or whatever they get off the internet. But that really hurts you in SEO. So what you want to do for any art is that you want to save them instead of the automatic gibberish, you want to save them with the keywords separated by dashes. It's a really simple trick, but will get you going that way. So content marketing via your blog is about establishing your company as a helpful expert in your area. So when you started out with your company, what questions did you have? What questions are your customers asking? What are the hot topics in your field? Plus, of course, you want to mention what your business does. You don't want to make it all about you because then that shows that you're bad at service, but you want to talk about what your business does, what they're developing. They want to get to know you as the human side of the business. Another great thing you want to do is to enable commenting and ask a lot of open-ended questions to further the discussion, as well as it collects essential feedback on your product or service. Plus, Google really likes an active online community. And let's be serious, it's not just about what your consumer wants and your target customer, it's also about what Google wants.
Can
What I
I chime in?
Please do.
Yeah, I think Jennifer made a really good point about um, engaging as a person. So when you're writing blog content, I think it's really important to have a personal voice and to really show the author bio. So I think that there's a big trend in internet content that moves away from content that's from a brand. So you might have a business and a brand name, and that's really important. But the content that's being produced isn't being voiced by the brand. It's actually being voiced by somebody from that brand. And people respond a lot better to actual people on the internet. So I think when you're starting to create content for your blog, make sure that it isn't just a little text line for the author, that there's actually a big photo and a little bio that talks about who they are and how they relate to your brand.
Absolutely. And on the flip side, even though we want you to be a human, but Google really likes you to be a human too. And Google authorship and your authenticity and authority on certain topics is becoming essential to get Google attraction. So you want to also make sure your Google Plus is in your profile because that's your Google authorship now. It's a whole process.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One idea I heard of that I really loved is actually having a team member, like someone in tech or design, once a month or something, go ahead and write a blog post in their perspective of your industry. So you don't want to just have your marketing people writing stuff. You want to introduce to the entire team and show that you're a family, show fun pictures, use that on social media, give yourself a personality, but also talk about areas that maybe you wouldn't be qualified to talk about. So other people are authorities too. So they like,
Yeah, I think that's a really good point as well. I think that within a small business, there's actually a lot of information tied up in people's minds that could be really interesting for people to read about. And we sort of get this idea that, oh, we need to get a copywriter to produce all our content. And the problem with that is that it just becomes very limited in scope. Whereas if you can get other people in the organization to start writing, then you start to open up new topics. And I've done this with some organizations, and there's a lot of resistance. So working with some of the tech people to say, you guys, you know a lot about this software in a different way. Can we get some information out of you? And they're just nervous. They don't know what to say. They don't know what to write. And so I found that the best way to get other people to contribute is to sort of jot down some ideas and then have someone turn that into a blog post, but at least get the unique ideas from the rest of the people in the team.
absolutely. And interviewing people always works too, a Q&A or anything that gets different perspectives. I love it. So to move on, I know they teach you don't judge a book by its cover, but everybody judges a book by its cover. It's the same with headlines. My editor actually has touted the idea that when you're actually to writing an article, you should spend 80% of your concentration working on perfecting the headline. That seems like a lot, but it really does matter. And great headlines are how you Google. Sadly, in the blog world, think about how you Google. I'm always looking for what's the best way to, how can I do this faster? What are some tricks? Then, of course, you can focus on trending topics that are related to you. Newsjacking is very hot now. The only problem is that's like you've got to be very quick in responding it. And then, of course, being shocking is another way to go. Our number one blog post by far is always something inside the organization. People say, well, do you think we should change this? It's not exactly professional to have the word kick ass business proposal guide, but it's by far our number one blog post we've ever written. And it gets a couple thousand hits a month based on the fact that it is a really well organized blog with bullets and covers a very specific topic. It's very good to taking people on how to create a kick-ass business proposal, but also probably the word kick-ass has effect on the entire process, making it memorable. And then if you're making it memorable, make it shareable. Oh, I forgot to mention the URL. This is something where people try to do really long URLs or try to do something with dates, or there's just so many different opportunities they do. The best URLs are the ones that are specific to the keywords, short and truncated. So you don't need to have all those dates maybe you want to for your blog, but you can have it on the blog the date it was published, but you don't have to have it in the URL. There's things like that. I don't know why I put it.
Yeah, I think that there's sort of an old misconception about SEO that if you can get more of the keywords in the URL, then it's going to get you more traffic. And I mean, to some extent that's true, but it's actually better in the long run to have a short, neat look URL. Like even from um, search results, a neat looking URL will get more clicks, will get a Twitter share. It's easy to type, so I think that you should focus on having a neat URL over stuffing it full of keywords, and the keywords really come in the title and throughout the rest of the content.
And the meta description and tags are all
Yeah,
definitely. But also, once you commit to a URL and you have a successful blog post, don't change that URL. You'll lose that Google traffic.
yeah, that's a really recently line quotes to scrapped, and we had to change our URLs. So when you change the URL, if Google has detected that that's a good article, that's new traffic, and then it changes, and it doesn't necessarily fit the new one, or you don't redirect it, then it perceives your website and that article as less relevant. It also loses the. So if people have been book and you get those share counts, which kind of creates a bit of social trust for the reader, if you change that URL, those share counts get lost.
Mhm. And of course, you want to create, if you have a solid blog post, you don't want someone copying it because it will downgrade them, or you don't want to publish the same blog post in two places because it looks at like ununique content, and Google doesn't like that either. Okay, and you definitely want to enable commenting because it, like I mentioned before, it builds a community of repeat readers and social shares. Some will be obnoxious, but guess what? They get page views and they're the ones that people read and will engage further. I don't recommend deleting comments unless they're obviously spam or offensive, I guess, or something like that. You want to build a community and you also want to make sure that you respond to comments. I know with Quote Roller, that's one of the places people will reach out for tech support. I don't recommend it. I think you should contact our tech support, but then I can contact our tech support anyway, but we need to know right away if they're having some sort of problem or if there's something confusing to them to clarify. And this for me is one of my biggest pet peeves. I have a lot of friends in blogging industry who use these special share add-ons. You want to people to share your content, especially that Google Plus. Imagine it's really like hitting that G plus, that plus one is actually a bump in Google. And of course, no one really uses that, but it's still really important to Google Plus. Um, but in general, you want people to share it. But I think giving them extra level of things to do, those extra hoops they have to jump through to sign up to share, to log in to share, I think actually discourages sharing. So you want to make it easy to share, but I would say with native social media plugins, so you click on it and it automatically opens in somewhere else. Don't have to add extra permissions. You want to make everything easy. Same with commenting. You don't want to make it difficult for people to comment. So, speaking of social media, I love this inappropriate quote. Social media is like teen sex. Everybody wants to do it, no one knows how. When it's finally finished, there's a surprise it's not better. So, these are penguins, but maybe these could actually be lemmings because more than half of all consumers consult social media before buying. Whether you like it or not, whether you have to be active on social media, and even not even just active, you have to have those social media sites because as much as not having a website will devalidate you, but if you are a company that doesn't have a Facebook page, even if you're B2B, it will be perceived as odd and maybe untrue. So you use Facebook for B2C, LinkedIn mostly for B2B, and then Twitter kind of works for both. Especially Facebook and Twitter, easy ways to build brand ambassadors where they go ahead and promote you. Actually, companies that use Twitter double their leads. That doesn't mean they're always qualified leads, but they double their leads. They're active, you tweet something within, the statistic is that if you tweet something 4 times in 36 hours, it'll get optimal awareness without being obnoxious. That's the balance between the two. So if you have an event or something special, or maybe you have a new blog that you think is really good, that's also a way to reach the international market in the different time zones. So
Yeah, I think Twitter Twitter's a really easy way to um, sort of get in front of big brands or influential writers. So um, we this is coming up a little bit later, but we did a post about some of the big business directories in Australia, and so of course we mention that they're in our post and we tweet them, and then they retweet that because they're being positioned in a positive way, so they want to retweet that, which gets us extra traffic and it gets us extra followers. So Twitter is a good tool for getting in front of people quickly and easily, whereas like Jennifer's saying, Facebook and LinkedIn are a bit more focused on consumers and businesses.
absolutely. And I feel like lately there are two different types of Twitter users: the exhibitionists and the voyeurs, like people that use it for information and people that use it to just share things.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow there's some sort of symbiotic relationship that it works together. But you want to make sure to interact with the other exhibitionists and other people that are sharing all the time so that
Mm.
they'll interact with you and share you. So here, I'm sharing 4 social media musts. Now, if you see in the background, maybe 6 months ago, I feel like it was, Flickr went to freemium, from freemium to premium. They had some, and they basically crashed. It was called Panda, and then they basically had fun with it and had a series of ads and even a hashtag bad panda. And basically, they made fun of themselves for what was going on. They could have instead ignored it or said, "Oh, we're so sorry," but instead they made it a trend and turned it into news themselves. So you should never delete anything. You should always reply publicly. Obviously, delete something that's obviously spam or something. You want to engage with your followers. Ask a lot of open-ended questions. If you see the Socratic theme runs throughout the presentation, because even though it's 2,500 years old, it still works. You also want to share your clients. It shows loyalty to them. They actually think, wow, okay, they follow us. They favorited some of our stuff. I don't know if favoriting works, but people like it. And wow, they retweeted our stuff. That must mean they really support our organization, and that does build brand loyalty. And then usually they say you should say about 75% on topic with quote roller. It could be anything in the sales realm, not just business proposals, but then maybe do like 25% fun and trending topics to keep discussion going, to keep your Twitter active. And then I really mean this: check all social media at least once a weekday, because people more and more are using it for customer support. Whether you have customer support or not, people are going to do it. And guess what? If something's wrong, they're going to publicly post it too. So you want to deal with that and address it right away. And then I love Hootsuite because it keeps me ironically off of social media when I'm trying to post things. So I can schedule stuff but not get into the time trap that is social media. But also it keeps things scheduled. It will automatically schedule things, so it just makes it easier for you. And it knows the best time to schedule things, because maybe it is 2 p.m. Eastern time like everybody says it is, but maybe it's not for you. So it just makes my life easier. And then, so what about a website? With a blog and social media, do I really need one? Well, maybe. Maybe you can use a site like Service Crowd so you don't need one. But for some industries, having a website significantly cuts down your advertising costs up to 70%. And then just look how the websites convert. You've got professional or financial services, 10%, 10%. These are all people that have converted to sales, directly proven based on having a website. And okay, if you're not going to have a website, please don't have a website. I can't tell you how many times I've come across not only quote roller customers, but actually quote roller web design customers who don't have web pages, or they have not full web pages that'll say under construction, but the time has run down. They don't even have contact info on the page. At the bare minimum, you need certain things like up-to-date contact info, an up-to-date email. It's crazy how things don't work. You want functioning social share buttons or don't have them on there. If things are broken on your website, especially if you are a web design company, it looks really bad. I love
Yeah, I think it's really important. Even if you're not going to use the website as your primary lead generation tool, it does need to kind of be there and showcase who you are and what you do. Because I mean, even if someone's personally referring you, the first thing the referral will do is Google your name and look at your website. So if you're going to have one, it needs to be done properly.
And even if you're just doing a blog, that's totally fine too, but you still need to have this information on it too, especially like contact info and share buttons should just work. It looks bad if things don't work. And then definitely you want to have a brilliant call to action. So some different CTAs to have on your website, or once again on your blog is fine. Click here to try us for free. Sign up for our newsletter because that's a way you can continue building a relationship that way with your clients and follow up with them. Get a sales quote form. Buy it today. Tell us what we can do for you. Tell us when we can call you. Tell your friends with social sharing or anything that entices them to give you their info. Any type of free content that solves a common problem for your client base. You want to try to capture leads as well to make them more qualified leads. So anything you can do for that is useful. Um, and then this is something I actually learned from Daniel. So just asking a lead for an email address has a significantly higher conversion rate. But if you ask them for both their email and their phone number, you have more ways to engage with them, which I actually learned from Daniel. So that brings is a great introductory point to have Daniel talk about the examples of content that can convert better.
Okay, how do I go backwards in these? Oh, there we go. So are you on sharing my screen? Okay.
I think you're good.
Okay. So what I want to talk about is just a couple of examples of content that converts into valuable leads for our business. So I'll just quickly explain the business a little bit. So we're a quote comparison website for services. That means people can come along and if they're looking for a particular service, they can write a description of what they want, and then they can get multiple quotes back within sort of 24 hours. So on the other side of the business is people who are looking for sales leads, people who want to provide quotes. So our job essentially is to try to generate as many leads as possible for the people to provide quotes on. And one of our ways to do that is with content marketing. And I want I want you to think a little bit about content like a landing page. So a landing page is something that has a specific offer, a nice headline, and a form that you fill out. And I think that content is starting to become something like this. Content isn't just something that we put on the internet and get traffic. Content is actually something that we want people to take action on and ultimately either share it, comment on it, or subscribe or opt in. So they're this kind of the call to actions. So similarly to a landing page, there are specific things you want them to do when they're reading your content. So I'm going to go over just sort of two examples of content that's worked particularly well, that's generated a lot of leads, and also kind of demonstrate that the topic for content doesn't have to be directly about your product or your service. There are usually topics that come in just to the side but make sense. It's the right reader. So one of the really simple things to write about is something that people need offline. And the reason this is a good topic to write about is because it means that they'll download something. And if they download something, they'll opt into it. So think of things that someone in the office might actually need, something that they'll hand around and print out that they might actually use on a daily basis in your industry. What kind of material are they willing to actually download? Does it solve some kind of immediate problem that they have in your industry? Um, and if you produce this kind of material, will it demonstrate expertise to this person? And does it sort of fit into a research cycle? Um, so PROCESSpedia is a company that produces software for managing and automating business processes. So they sell this software on a kind of consulting basis. And so obviously the immediate sort of content topics that would make sense to them is to talk about, well, process software and all the kind of great things their process software can do. But often people aren't even beginning to search for that kind of stuff. They might be before software. So they might be thinking about other processes and business processes generally. So there are less obvious content topics that can raise awareness about the sort of software. So a piece of content that I worked with this company with was called the BPM Roles and Responsibilities. So BPM is just business process management. And there's, after doing a bit of research, a lot of confusion about what the, like process manager and process, and sat down and tried to define what all of those were. And the blog post itself became really popular. We didn't really anticipate that it would, but it did, and it started generating sort of around 1,000 visits a month. So we decided, well, we should try to take advantage of that. We're getting all this traffic to this one piece of content, but nothing's really happening. So it's kind of like having a leaky bucket. You're pouring all this water into something, but all the water's pouring back out again. So there needs to be a way of capturing some of that traffic. So we decided that we'd turn it into a downloadable checklist. And that downloadable checklist, so that's that document on the right, wasn't anything really more than the content of the blog post, but it was just presented in a nice way, and it meant that it was a document that the person could have on their computer, open up easily, and print out. So the good piece of content, which wasn't about the software, it was about another issue to do with the industry, then led obviously to a landing page. So the landing page was built using something called Unbounce. That's a really great tool for whipping up pages really quickly and easily, and has a nice download form. And that, as far as I know, that piece of content gets them the most leads out of all the blog content on their site, and didn't even have anything to do with business process management software. Another kind of angle to get at without actually talking about the product or the service itself is something that people are trying to do themselves. So there are a lot of people out there who are looking for a piece of software or looking for a technique or a tip that's going to help them do the thing themselves. And intuitively, you might think, well, that's the wrong kind of person. You know, they obviously don't really want to spend any money. But the thing about content marketing is that it's actually a kind of a long-term strategy. As you build up content and you build up opt-ins and you're sending email out to those people, the person who was DIY 6 months ago is actually now ready to purchase something. And if you're the one who demonstrated expertise and you're the one that helped them solve a particular problem, then you'll be the first person they come to. There's a really good example in a book called Sticky Marketing about this, where the author gives two examples. He talks about a car salesman, and he has this, big car sales place, and he offers it to the local business community to use for their meetings. And all he asks for in return is just that he gets kind of 10-15 minutes before their meeting to have a little kind of sales pitch. And in the first example, the car salesman talks about the latest car that he's got on offer, and he talks about how great it is and how fast it is and how fuel efficient it is. And of course, everyone in the audience just kind of rolls their eyes. They're thinking, oh God, here we go. We have to go through this sales message. And essentially that's called interruption marketing. You are trying to tell someone or sell something to a person who's not actually interested and not really ready for it. And that's the kind of advertising that we've had for years and years and years. Then the alternative is, instead of talking about the latest and greatest car, he gets up and he talks about a whole bunch of topics like what is the most fuel efficient fuel right now, or what's the cheapest way of modifying your car to make it more fuel efficient, or which tires on the market are the best tires to be getting. So he's not necessarily selling anything that he has, but he's giving immediate advice that people can walk away with and actually benefit from. So if he's giving this content away for free and then hands out some information that says, we've got a whole lot more on our blog, come and check us out, subscribe. So of course no one would want to buy a car then and there. But if he was the person to be offering them all of that really great advice for the next 6 months, then the first person they think to turn to when they are ready to buy a car is of course that person. So what aspects of your product or service are people trying to do themselves? What kind of problems are they trying to solve? Do you know something about it that they don't? Can you demonstrate that expertise? Does the topic lend itself to a free offer? So this certain problem that you're trying to solve, is there something on top that you could do for free that then gets them to opt in? And does your premium service offer an even better solution to the DIY that at some point they may become a paying customer? So Service Crowd, as I mentioned, is quote comparison for services. Immediate content topics obviously would be services. So if we talk about web design, then surely we'll get people who want web design. And if people want to get quotes on SEO, then surely we should talk about SEO. But the less obvious content topics are actually the less competitive ones that people are searching for in their research stage. So this is the second edition of a post that we are now writing called the Top 10 Business Directories. And it's focused specifically on Australia. So in 2012, when we wrote it, again, this was a bit of a surprise. It started getting around 1,000 to 1,500 visits a month just on that one post because it was started ranking for just the phrase business directories. And it turns out that people who are researching business directories are interested in online advertising and online promotion and therefore SEO. So we decided to write the post again and do it in a lot more depth. And it got a lot more shares. So this one is also starting to build up a lot of traffic. So the offer, instead of just offering something to download, we can tell that the people are particularly interested in directories, and we can actually offer them a free directory submission service. So for us, it's a fairly well-defined process to submit these businesses to these top 25 directories. So it's not expensive for us to do this process. It is kind of giving something away for free, and it is a slight risk, but the person is giving us all of their business information. They're giving us their address, their phone number, to a business directory, and then that tells us that they're interested in SEO services. So we then offer a free kind of series of emails about SEO and how to do a little bit of DIY SEO. And what a lot of people find is that when they try to do things themselves that they're not specialized in, even armed with the right information, they start to see how complex it really is, and that at some point they often do want to hire an expert in the service. So we find that as people come in through this content researching business directories, they opt into our offer, and at some point they then request quotes from local SEO services. And because this is a high value offer, we're actually doing something for the person. This is called kind of this service, the blog post about this blog post, then reveal the link to order this particular service, or they can share it on LinkedIn or whatever it is. So if you have a really high value offer like that, then you can both do a share to unlock and generate a lead from it.
I love that. I think that's really good, the sharing to show. I think that's a good example of everything. I really like that you're really enticing everybody to get involved.
Yeah, that's right. And it's sort of that's how we got a tipping point for the first one is having that share locker and Twitter links. And so when someone tweets something, that actually counts as a backlink. When someone Google plus one something, that actually counts as a backlink. So that piece of content has from Twitter and 42 links from individual Google Plus profiles. And in the early days, that is a really good ranking factor. And if people start to link to that content, then it stays ranking really high.
I'm also finding Pinterest, randomly enough, even though we're not very active on Pinterest, which is my fault because I'm not very active on Pinterest,
Mm-hmm.
but it turns out to be like our third ranked backlink. So
All
Pinterest is
right.
being involved so high, and then of course YouTube, but make sure you have your full HTTP URL in the description of the YouTube. It's obviously a very high backlink too, so you got to always make sure to
Mm,
include your links in their full HTTP colon slash slash www
mm,
realm.
yep.
So absolutely, thank you for that. That was really interesting.
No worries.
You
So I
can-
guess the sort of the take home message is you don't have to write about your services. There are topics that people are researching every day that if you tell them about it, they will also be interested in your product or service. It's sort of there are always going to be a
I think you're breaking up there for a minute, Daniel. Um, okay, I think we may have lost you.
topic
Oh, there we go.
in. Am I still here?
Yeah, you broke up for a second there, Daniel, but always isn't it the case
I,
that when someone says, "Can you hear me now?" that you can always hear them.
yeah. All right, so I'll pass it back to you.
Okay, great. That's really interesting. And then I just wanted to ask a follow-up question about the Twitter thing you mentioned. Does that mean that each tweet, because it's from a different Twitter user, is a backlink, or just in general, Twitter is one type of backlink?
No, every tweet itself is a backlink, and of course not all links are equal. So if there are very influential Twitter users who have people linking to their profile and they tweet to your article, that's actually going to be a more valuable link.
Wow, I had no idea. I knew Twitter influencers or LinkedIn influencers obviously have a greater ability to share, but I didn't know if on Google. That's fascinating.
Mm, yep.
See, we learn something new every day here at Quote Roller. So, I'm like totally busy. Do I really need all this crap? All this content marketing crap? Yes, content marketing is really awesome. So, why is it awesome? Because it's almost free. Yes, there is the time commitment, absolutely. And if you're doing something like opt in forms, there might be some web design or learning how to use Unbounce or Wufoo, absolutely. But Google loves content marketing. Um, it creates your own brand recognition. It generates you tons more leads, as we already talked about. It helps you funnel and qualify those leads. You can use a different CRM that integrates with it. So you can even have with different social media or different aspects of your content marketing, your newsletters, everything. So you know how you interact with those people. Then if you're generating more leads, funneling more leads, you're getting more sales. And I can't stress it really, if you're not on social media or if you don't have a blog, you're not legitimizing yourself as an expert in your industry as much. And everything, both in people's habits and in Google's habits, is moving towards your authority and your credibility in certain areas. So if you want to build a credibility in that area, you want to do it. And then, of course,
Yeah, yeah, that's I think that's a really important point. What I've seen some people do, they've been convinced by, and so they set up, something like Blogspot, but and and all the attention and all the social media traffic and all the links are actually contributing to blogspot.com rather than your own website. Um, so if you are going to start using content and blogging, then it really should be part of your website, not just some attached thing that you try to send traffic back to. It needs to be integrated properly.
absolutely, that's interesting. And then I've seen some blogs that their blog posts actually are just their website, like blah blah blah.com. And then even though they're separate pages for sharing purposes, the URL is the same. Does that hurt them or is that not a problem?
Say that again.
These are blogs that, because of how they do their iframe or whatever, they are only allowed to, they can, are only able to, even though they have individual blog posts, each blog post is actually their main URL. And
Yeah, that's not good.
so you want to make
Yeah,
sure to create as many
every
quality pages as possible within your website, correct?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So we just want to bring up again, this is how you make sales. So you want to have continual contact with your clients. 2% are made on the 2% of sales are made on the first contact. 80% of sales are made somewhere between the fifth and 12th contact. Social media, blog commenting, these are ways to make contacts. It doesn't just have to be picking up the phone and cold calling anymore. So then, of course, like we mentioned, Unbounce and Woofo are easily great pages to create landing pages on web forms, and then you need to flow it into your CRM, your client relationship management system. Quote Roller connects, integrates with 13 of them. We love CRMs. We use them ourselves. We use various kinds for various needs, and we definitely think it's crucial for, as you're doing all of this content marketing work, you need to have a CRM to then manage how you're going to contact them, because eventually your company will get too big to do it in Excel spreadsheets and it's not going to track everything in Excel anyway. So and then of course, if you have the leads, you want to go ahead and maybe consider creating a quote roller proposal. So everything from the CRM pours into the leads. Then you go ahead and you have your pricing table, which is automated, and then you use our editor, which is very drag and drop, easy, easy. And the whole point of both content marketing, sales, everything you're doing needs to be focused on client needs. Like I said, you can share your updates and you want to be introduced as a person and a personal company, but really people want to know what you're going to do for them. So with a business proposal, you can use, with a quote roller business proposal, you can use videos, websites, photo galleries, HTML content, custom branding. Absolutely. And you can reuse content. We have it takes a little effort up front, and then you can make proposals in 5 to 15 minutes, because you create templates that really respect the different areas you want. But every time you reuse a proposal or anytime you do content, you have to take time to customize it to address your leads needs and your target customers needs, because that's what everything with content marketing is about. So as I mentioned, as our little spiel, the average time it takes to create a quote within Quote Roller is about 15 minutes, but that's because those 15 minutes are focused on customizing to your client. And then the average rate increase is 28%. But absolutely, it's all about answering a problem, solving solutions for your client. And that's what you should be thinking about as you create content. So, what are you waiting for? Why don't you get out there and start building your brand's presence and authority and credibility online? Thank you so much for joining us. And we hope that you'll consider checking out quoteroller.com and servicecrowd.com.au so you can definitely start working on building your business. Thank you.